Hailing from the Jersey Shore and raised as athletes, the Airey Bros have always shared a passion for physical culture, athletic performance, and human optimization, always striving to be the strongest versions of themselves, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Along the way, they've met some pretty amazing humans and have had some pretty epic adventures. The intention of Airey Bros Radio is to showcase these amazing people and the impact that they've had on them, and to share tips, tricks, and hacks so that you can win each day, every day.
You're listening to Airey Bros Radio. Be there or be square, because it's all killer, no filler.
For me, I grew up on 80s wrestling. You always heard all these stories of like riots and stuff like that. So just having one person mad enough to hurt me, I was like, yes, the corporate life's not for us. And so we sold our house, quit our jobs, and moved to the beach. When it hits, man, it feels so good to know that that was a discussion we had when it didn't even exist, more than just an idea that was thrown out loud. And now look at it. It's right. I never thought I'd make a living off of professional wrestling, but here I am, failed professional wrestler, moderately skilled broadcaster, novice ring announcer, and using my leadership capabilities from other companies to help run a wrestling company. You just need to find the thing that you excel at and that you fit yourself into that slot, be it, camera work, lighting, story. It could be any sorts of thing. I mean, I literally work with people that wanted to be a wrestler instead they made music for wrestling. Because if you can't compete with everybody, the key is to do something different. Like the green screen behind me is because now I do every program we have, I do like a little 1 minute and 30 second, control center thing from my house. This responsive, I can't believe you're replying to this. You're out of the ring right now. I always like to remind him how disappointing it is that the only person that graduated from the Ring of Honor Academy under him is now a broadcaster. And it was a hat that said, "Steel don't melt at that temperature, and neither does this dick." And I was like, is that a dick joke 9/11 truther hat? You never know what's gonna happen, kids. Tomorrow could be the day. Guys, this is Kyle Davis from the National Wrestling Alliance, and have you lucked out because you stumbled upon the Airey Bros Radio? Let me tell you something. Keep on listening. Tune in. Don't tune out. This is the place to be. What's going on? Legit brothers shooting out of work? This isn't something made up?
No, it's a shoot.
All right, congratulations. Look at you guys. Both doing what you like together. I like to see this. Make it a family situation.
Yeah, it only took like 25, 30 years for us to get it together. And although even as recent as like a year ago, we got into a fist fight in the streets of downtown Denver. So
who won?
He tapped. I made him tap.
I tapped.
I made him tap. I wouldn't get off until he tapped.
I bloodied him though.
Yeah. He killed my tooth, if that's any consolation prize. We like to have a little bit of an icebreaker when we have guests on, and I'm a huge pro wrestling fan. Rich, not so much, but he's always along for the ride. We've had the Seidel Brothers on before, so we've spoke to some wrestlers. And one thing that we all have in common, I was looking on your LinkedIn to get some research done for this podcast, and I saw you worked at Whole Foods, and Rich and I had both worked at Whole Foods at one point.
I did. I used to be an ASTL at Whole Foods, which is basically like a GM there. I used to run one in Atlanta for 2.5 years. And then the pandemic hit and we decided, maybe corporate life's not for us. And so we sold our house, quit our jobs, and moved to the beach. It's one of those things. It was nice, though, during the pandemic to be a part of it, because when everything else shut down, obviously a grocery store that's run by a giant conglomerate like Amazon is not going anywhere. So I had a lot of peace of mind. And while other people were kind of struggling to get through, I at least had that idea of every day, well, at least my job's there and I can still work and still have a passive income coming in. So.
And then, so was it a hard, I know you said you quit your job, moved to the beach. Was that a hard moment for you to have, or was that something you were ready to do that and it was an easy decision?
For me, it was really hard. My wife also had the same position with Whole Foods. And she was the one that was like, listen, I'm not feeling it. I need to change of pace. Let's do this. And I jokingly said, what do you want to do? Quit our job, sell the house, and move to the beach. Not thinking it would actually be of anything. Yeah, it happened. I've always been very safe. I'm always concerned about like what tomorrow is going to bring. So I liked having that steady ground. But it was good enough. I mean, with the housing market, what it was, we were able to, have a profit and then figure out where we want to do a few months. And then luckily it was NWA 73 weekend when all this kind of came to fruition. And I am at our annual pay-per-view and I'm shooting shit with Billy Corgan, my boss. And he goes, "You quit your job?" I go, yeah. So this is it. I'm just wrestling right now. We'll see what happens. And he goes, I think I might have an office position for you. A year later, here I am. So worked out pretty nicely, actually. I never thought I'd make a living off of professional wrestling, but here I am, failed professional wrestler, moderately skilled broadcaster, novice ring announcer, and using my leadership capabilities from other companies to help run a wrestling company. So you never know what's going to happen, kids. Tomorrow could be the day.
Kyle, you mentioned failed pro wrestler, and you were trained by Brian Danielson in 2006 at the ROH dojo, and you came up in ROH when the who's who of ROH was there. And I know that you had some time in and out of wrestling, and then I believe there was some time when you weren't in wrestling at all, and then the NWA, Dave Lagana, came around, gave you a call, and then you're back in it, kind of part-time dabbling. And I know there must have been some times when you see everyone you came up with is making it, and you're like, man, I was with those guys. I had the opportunity to go to New Japan Dojo. I didn't take that. So what's it like now? You're working hand in hand with the guy from the Smashing Pumpkins, and you're helping run the NWA. Do you feel like hey, I might not made it as a wrestler, but I'm here and I'm doing it?
That's exactly how I feel all the time. It's the whole concept that when you there's something you want to do and you're like, I'm going to put effort into this. And then in retrospect, you realize I didn't put all the effort into it. I always had one foot safely on the side. I wasn't willing to risk. I didn't put everything I should have to get to where I needed to be like other people did. Like Kevin Steen, who's now Kevin Owens, would be like, oh, hey, if you guys want bookings in Canada, just let me know and I'll help you guys out. Come on up there and, get some experience. And I'd be like, Canada seems too far. I'm not going to take them up on that. You mentioned the New Japan Dojo. I did get the opportunity and somebody said, hey, you should move to LA. They have the LA Dojo out there. We can get you in there. You could train with them and work on that. And I was like, I like my life on the East Coast here. Like I had so much opportunity and I didn't put work and the effort into it that I know I should have. And so in retrospect, being an adult now and being older, I'm almost 40. I look back and I go like, wow, things could have been different, but they worked out the way they were going to work out with what I put into it. So now retrospect, knowing what I know today, everything kind of just happened the way I wish it would have in a very different manner. I built my skill set somewhere else. I built life skills, and then they brought me back into wrestling. And now I get to merge my real life and my entertainment life together. So at the end of the day, I can't complain. Do I wish I was, 6'5", jacked and tan with the long hair, being an idol of millions and famous? Yeah, that'd be fantastical. But that's not in the cards for me. Instead, I'm like 5'8.5" because my neck is starting to compress and I'm bald and I'm middle-aged, and that's not going to happen. But instead, I can use my skills to verbalize and to act upon and to help guide other people that have those physical talents that I didn't have to be stars of tomorrow.
Take it a step back, how do you get to the first wrestling school with Daniel Bryan and doing that stuff? And like, do you have an athletic background? Do you have a wrestling background? Were you a football player, or I mean, how does a guy?
I was a fat kid in high school. And
Okay.
I was a fat kid in high school, and then I leaned out and became kind of a pretty boy, and I could talk and I had a personality, and I was always a big fan of professional wrestling. It's like real life comic books. There's certain people that I saw when I was not the coolest cat, and I don't think I am today, but people that I wanted to emulate or be like, that I saw something in. Like I saw Mick Foley, and I saw somebody that could take a beating that wasn't the greatest looking guy, not the most athletic guy, but he can make a connection with the audience. Tommy Dreamer can get his ass kicked and keep on going. Like Shane Douglas and Shawn Michaels were individuals where I was like, man, I wish I could have that cocky attitude, and I wish I could be that person and carry myself that way. And Taz and Dean Malenko are both short guys that were really technically skilled in wrestling, and these were all the people I looked to, and I said, if they can do it and make a way, maybe I could find something in it. And then it was in 2005, it was the ECW reunion show. They had the WWE version of it at the Hammerstein Ballroom, and we had tickets to that. And the night before, we were in Philly at the ECW arena that had everybody that wasn't going to work that show had their own ECW reading show. So we went to that, and then Ring of Honor had a show earlier in the day of the ECW WWE show, and we went to that. So we went to 3 shows in the span of 2 days. I went to the ROH show, first time I ever saw ROH. Loved it. It was a fantastic show. And there was like little flyers on the seat for the ROH Academy. And I remember I just grabbed one and I was like, hey, maybe. And I didn't act upon it, which is very typical of me. I always talk myself out of doing anything. I'm my own worst enemy. And so time goes by, I follow the Ring of Honor product. I go to a couple more shows. And then Kenta had a wrestling seminar in the Bristol, PA area, which where the Ring of Honor Academy was. And so I drove down there, talked to him, and it was really just an excuse to talk to Brian Daleson and ask him about the school. I ended up taking out a loan and going to the academy, completely not physically prepared for it whatsoever. It was like boot camp. Got in the best shape of my life, which was also a uphill struggle, nightmare. I mean, again, I'm not like Captain Physical, athletic. My ass ain't going over my head. I'm not able to do 1,000 squats in a row. I got up to 500 Hindu squats in a row as the beginning of the workout, which I was impressed by. Can't do it today. But that was really how it started happening. Is I was basically waiting for so long to do something. I finally was convinced by multiple people to give it a shot, and then I ran with it. And here I am today. And I can be honest with you that I did not put the effort in that I wish I did at the time. I mean, I was surrounded by some of the biggest names, some of the most talented, skilled individuals in the entire wrestling industry today, as they were building names for themselves. These were people that I had every opportunity to surround myself with and learn from and work with. And a lot of times I was just happy to be there. I just thought it was cool that I was in the wrestling business. And that's the wrong attitude to have. So really, my big thing now in my career is making sure that up and coming talent don't make the same mistakes I do, so they can build and grow and hit the level of success that they were supposed to. Also, congratulations, guys. I just have internet for the first time in a week.
Let's go. You're welcome. That's some Airey Bros magic over there.
Do you ever take bumps anymore, or are you strictly on the other side of it now?
The only time I ever take bumps is like when they set up the ring and I go, has anybody actually rolled around this to make sure the boards are good? And so he says no, and I'll just be like, oh, and I'll just take a few bumps. And then everybody always be like, you help run the company. You don't need to do that. I'm like, well, nobody else has at this point. So I still got it.
Right on.
I can make other people look good. I'm not going to make myself look good, but I can make other people look good.
That's the name of the game sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so you mentioned those events where you first got into it. Are you from the New York, Philadelphia area?
Connecticut.
Grew up in Connecticut.
Okay.
Yeah. Northeast Connecticut. It's a tiny little place called Torrington. Strangely enough, two people I work with right now in NWA are actually in that area. Ricky Balagursky's a Connecticut guy, and also Velvet Sky lives 2 towns over from where I grew up. So small world. Woo-hoo, Connecticut.
Is that kind of near like New Haven, or am I out of the ballpark there?
No, it's near Waterbury.
Waterbury. Okay.
Yeah, closer to the Massachusetts. So like if I ever wanted to go to an outlet or anything like that, I used to have to drive up to Lee, 45 minutes in the Massachusetts area. But yeah, it's weird to me to be in Florida right now because it's like 79 degrees out, and I'm being told right now it's like 43 there, and they might get snow next week.
Yeah,
Crazy.
we're Jersey guys, and Jimmy lives in Colorado, and I'm down in South Carolina, so it's I enjoy the weather.
I wrestled Sid at an NWA show in Trenton, New Jersey, at an outdoor show, and I pissed off the crowd so much they were throwing rocks at me. Fond memory.
Jeez. What did you do?
I was just being obnoxious. I remember I came out in swim trunks, a t-shirt, a blazer, and Steve Madden boots. And I had a group called the Players Club at the time with Danny DeMonto and a couple other guys. And we were feuding with Sid, and I was like the manager / every now and then I'd wrestle, just bump around for him. And I called him out, and I was just, people were booing me because I looked ridiculous. And I was like, obviously you guys didn't see the weather report. It's supposed to rain. Smart man here. Trunks, stay dry. Steve Madden boots because I'm classy. Jacket because I'm better than everybody here. Like it's, I like MJF because a lot of like him, I was like, oh shit, there's no way in hell that guy ever saw me work. But a lot of the character bullshit and stuff like that, it was spot on. Right, like Coco Beware was a big wrestler in the 80s with the Bird. I remember we were supposed to do something with him, so I cut a promo about how Thanksgiving was right around the corner. We all know we fell in hard times, and I think we know what happened to Frankie, but don't worry about it because the family's going to have a feast. That's all that matters. I just say stuff like that. It's just being a dick. But yeah, NWA, that was my first thing in the NWA. So it's crazy that I'm involved in the Lightning One era, as we call it, under Billy Corgan, because when it was just a shell of what it is, I was a part of that, just working random spots in the, Liberty States area, which was like Jersey, New York, and Connecticut.
A lot of things there I want to touch on. I feel like that must be the biggest high of all highs as a professional wrestler when you get the fans throwing stuff at you. Obviously, like that must be like one of the best things ever.
I had somebody, we were doing something at ringside. It was like a tag match, and I just remember the main event had the Nasty Boys in it, as weird as that is. But we had, there's police around the ring as like the security. There were part-time police officers off duty. And I remember at some point somebody came up to me like, hey, stay away from that side of the ring. Some guy said he was stab you. And I was like, oh, that's fantastic. Because it's just one of those things where I was believable enough in the way I was being obnoxious and inciting people to the point where somebody felt physically to the point where they're like, oh, I need to do something to this guy. They believed enough to want to act upon it. And I know that sounds insane. Like, why would you piss somebody off to the point where you might be dangerous? But for me, I was like, I grew up on 80s wrestling. You always heard all these stories of like riots and stuff like that. So just having one person mad enough to hurt me, I was like, yes, I'm doing it.
Yeah, that's definitely, to me as a lifetime wrestling fan, that's making it as a pro wrestler. So congratulations to you. And you had spoken before being in ROH, but feeling like you didn't make the most out of that opportunity as far as being a wrestler. But that's when you got into the production side of things, doing the broadcasting side of things. I know Austin Aries had encouraged you, hey man, if you do this, you can get on TV even more, 2-3 times
That's
the
true.
show.
Adam Pearce, SmackDown. Adam Pearce, who's in SmackDown, authority figure right now, was actually the guy who pushed me to it. He kind of took me under his wing, and I remember he told me like, "Al, you're the shits in the ring," and I was devastated. He goes, "But you could talk, which most people can't do. So why don't you get me and Gene Arklin when we get the TV show?" And that's how I segued over that. And Aries was the one that was just like, "Don't even second guess it. You're stupid to not do it." And here I am. I get to eat cheeseburgers. I wear a suit. I don't have to be jacked all the time. I could be, a little husky and a little pretty and a little grizzled. And, I don't have to get dropped on my head.
So being in the production side of professional wrestling, I feel, being a film student, and when teachers ask me, hey, why are you in college? And I'm like, oh, because I want to get into the production side of pro wrestling. They're like, what? Why are you here? Like, I don't know anyone who wants to do that. So my question to you is, are the guys on the side of the camera who are doing the producing and stuff, are they guys who came up as pro wrestling fans? Are the people that you work with in the NWA who maybe went to film school or maybe are writers who are in it because that's what they like to do and aren't necessarily pro wrestling fans? Or do you see the production side of pro wrestling is mostly wrestlers who didn't make it or came up wanting to be a wrestler?
It's a little bit of both. WWE hires writers from the outside. At one point in time, they only wanted to hire people that weren't fans of the business. Who knows why, and they have their own reasons. But I've worked with individuals that had a background in other production, and they just happened to find themselves in wrestling. I also have plenty of people that I work with in the National Wrestling Alliance that, are on-camera talent or have been on-camera talent, and they end up helping create that stuff backstage because they know, who should be where when the show starts, when this happens, cues, this, that, timing, this. So it's one of those things where even if, and I speak from the heart, even if you broke into professional wrestling to be a wrestler and it didn't work out, that doesn't mean you don't get to be in the wrestling industry. You just need to find the thing that you excel at and that you fit yourself into that slot, be it, camera work, lighting, story. It could be any sorts of thing. I mean, I literally work with people that wanted to be a wrestler and said they made music for wrestling, but they got the gist of it and their mind worked for it. So yeah, it's just one of those things where there's opportunities all around, and it just matters how you stumble into that. And be prepared when an opportunity presents itself is really the best thing that you can do for anything. And also network, because at the end of the day, you never know when that opportunity is going to come. You said it yourself. You heard there that Dave Lagana was the guy who gave me the opportunity in the National Wrestling Alliance on this round. And that was somebody who used to be my producer in Ring of Honor back in the day who remembered me and said, hey, we're going to be in Atlanta. Billy Corgan's buying the National Wrestling Alliance. I told him you would be up for it. Do you want to do it? And I said, yes, very much so. And he goes, good. I already told him, yeah. And that was just, call it nepotism, call it favoritism, call whatever you want. But having skill set and then knowing the right person that needs that skill set to fill something going on where they are gets you everywhere in
life. You mentioned Aries, told you that, you were good on the mic and that opened up an avenue for you getting into the other side of the ring. Have you always been a smooth talker, or is that something that came, you mentioned you were a fat kid in high school and weren't athletic, but you got into it. So were you a smooth talker in high school, or is it something that came with getting into wrestling?
No, ding, ding, you nailed it. See, if you're a pretty boy all your life and you're attractive, you don't really have to fall on anything. You have your looks to get by. But if you don't have looks, you have to develop a personality. And the best time to do that is right in those teenage years when everybody else is figuring out life. And that is exactly where I was like, ooh, I got my in. I'm a super shy person. I have immense anxiety. I don't like being in front of crowds. I don't like public speaking. I don't like doing any of that. I get very anxiety building up to do it. But it's just one of those things where I overcompensate for it. And that's what you get now is me overcompensating for my own insecurities.
Do you still get anxiety before shows and before that red camera goes or red dot goes on?
All the time. Like some people have to bring themselves up to do stuff. I have to bring myself down. So I have like CBD and everything before I have to do anything because it's the only way to moderately level me out. Also because I'm not supposed to be overshadowing the people that I'm interacting with because at the end of the day, I'm there to accentuate them, not overwhelm them. So I have to dial it back like tenfold. Otherwise, I'll just be going off on a tangent and running my mouth and I'll go into character mode because that's just how I'm comfortable.
So what is that fine line as far as when you're doing the between the match interviews and the backstage interviews, as far as wanting to give an actual interview and get the information, but actually play the character or the role you have to play? How do you balance that, and how does that work?
I have no idea how I balance that. I don't even think I do at times. Half the time, I think that I am failing on everything I'm doing. But then I guess I'm not because I'm still doing it. But I had to pick up ring announcing that I do now. So there's times where I'm looking at, the rundown of where we're going in the show, doing crowd work to keep the audience in it, listening to people in my ear, give me notes about what's happening next or doing that. Ring announcing, which also means that I'm trying to react and pay attention to the match. So I know when there's near falls and all this other stuff, knowing when the next segment that I have, knowing where we're leading on this thing. So it's trying to do like 7 things at once. And then also Joe Galley and I are helping run the company. So we're both on camera during the shows though. So if something goes wrong, every now and then I'll get a thing in my ear, like so-and-so got hurt or this, that, or the other thing. I really have no idea how I do it. I have no idea how anybody else does it. It's just one of those learned traits. And it feels like drowning in quicksand half the time, but as long as you don't notice that I'm drowning in quicksand, I guess we're doing okay.
So you mentioned doing 7 things at once and being on camera. I was always kind of curious to how that works for someone who is in the office, but also on television. When they're in the ring, is there stuff that you're taking care of when the camera's not on you, or are you getting things in your ear where you have to take care of? How does that work, and how do you do both?
We just had NWA 74, and during the pay-per-view, I'm at ringside, and I think I'm doing a countdown for a match or something like that. And I get a text message from BSK, who's one of our wrestlers, and he just sends me a picture of his eye all bleeding like this. And he goes, the medic didn't have a Band-Aid. And I was like, oh man. So I'm literally texting him at ringside while I'm also doing ring announcing and stuff during a pay-per-view. I'm like, hold on, let me find somebody for you. Let me do this, blah, blah, blah. Once I get back there, if they don't have anything, I'll run out and get something for you. He just responds with, I can't believe you're replying to this. You're out of the ring right now. Like, he's like, I was just messing with you. It's not a big deal. It happens. But it's just how I am. I'm a people pleaser. So I try to do too much.
You mentioned doing 7 things during the show. What does your daily role as a COO look like at the NWA? I see you got your studio behind you. So obviously you're probably recording stuff at home and what have you. What does that daily look like? Or is it different every day?
It's different every day. Myself and Joe Galley both share the duties for the company. And it's just one of those things where sometimes we are broadcasters, sometimes we're PR people, sometimes we're personal assistants for Billy Corgan. Right now, planning out the pay-per-view and the staging for our pay-per-view coming up on November 12th, Hard Times New Orleans. Hard Times 3 will be coming at you from Chalmette, Louisiana, which is right outside of New Orleans. Get it at nwatix.com for all your ticketing needs, or order on fight.tv. See, Pitchman 2 at times. We're also planning our schedule for next year. And then I am looking at spreadsheets with the roster, making sure people are going on that, interacting with everybody from Haban, who does our graphics, to Sherry, who does our music, to the venues, to the rest of our team, our producer who edits all the programming together, Billy Trask, talking to Billy. And now we have a podcast with Billy to promote his new Smashing Pumpkins album. That's an extra thing. Every day's different. It's really just a keep your email open, keep this open, do this. Like the green screen behind me is because now I do every program we have, I do like a little 1 minute and 30-second, control center thing from my house where I just promote whatever I feel needs to be promoted to fit into the next program. So it's usually like what's coming up next. Yeah. And then I write the copy for the graphics. I send that out to the news sheets and the rest of the talent to make sure the talent has all the stuff. So if you ever see like this weekend in NWA USA, blah, 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 like I write that stuff. I put that out there. So yeah, it's a little bit of everything. It's at the end of the day, it started off as one small thing and then just kept on building and building and building. And, hopefully one day there will be too much for Joe and me and everybody else to do, and we'll get even bigger. And the dream is one day not to have to do this stuff and just be like, hey, let me answer questions. We're not there yet. 2023, baby, come on.
You mentioned that at times you're a personal assistant for Billy Corgan, and I think as a Smashing Pumpkin fans growing up, I was kind of blown away when he was on Joe Rogan and he started to talk about his passion for professional wrestling and his involvement with it. So
I thought you were going to go somewhere else with that. The wrestling, yes.
Oh,
Joe Rogan, they get off a track on there, and I was like, all right, let's go there, baby. I mean, our podcast 33 drops on Tuesdays. It's a new song for the new album coming out. We hit a classic track every time, and I gotta tell you, somehow I don't know how it happened. I think because his new album is kind of like a space opera concept album. We keep on talking about aliens. I literally am asking like people, like the rapper Youngblood was on the other day, and I was like, have you ever had an alien experience? He's like, oh man, he got so excited, and it's just one of those dumb things. But like the wrestling, Billy Corgan grew up with wrestling. It was the thing that made him happy as a child. And then when you're super successful in life and you have some money and you have built your own brand and you know how to create things, that you say, hey, that other thing I loved when I was a kid, let me see if I can bring that into my own life and create through that. And that's what we're doing now. So it's big ups to him. I mean, every now and then I'll be like, really? He'll say something or he'll want something. And I'll be like, Billy, come on. But then I go, well, I can't really tell him no. The man hasn't been wrong up to this point. He's been successful for 30 years by doing what he thinks right. So you can't really argue with that.
And so when you're with him and you're interacting with him, is he always just pro wrestling? Does the rock star side ever come out, or is there a rock star side, or is he just a pro wrestling fan that just happens to make really awesome music?
No, he's just a normal guy at the end of the day who happens to have a very successful career and has made a butt ton of money doing that. But at the end of the day, he's a human being. He has wants, dreams, regrets, concerns. And at the end of the day, I think the reason I was given the position I am is because I acknowledge that. I think it's very hard when you're a celebrity to kind of question where everybody's coming from that interacts with you, because, a lot of times people you find want things out of you. So just having somebody, and I can remember we were at a bar at an after party, and I was just next to him and I was a little intoxicated. I was like, just, and the whole roster was there. And I said, just look at everybody here. And he's like, yeah. I go, you wanted to do something and you made the NWA a thing again. And you decided to bring all of these people, myself included, together and adopt us as this weird ass family so you could help build the thing that you always wanted, which means in a weird way, you're responsible for every person in this room. Man, that's gotta fuck with you, doesn't it? And he just stared at me. He goes, Kyle, I've never thought of it that way. I don't want to think like that way. Why are you bringing this up? And then 5 minutes later, somebody comes up to me and he goes, hey, Billy wants you and the Pope to do a toast for everybody. Me treating him that way and just basically being like, look at this. This is fucking cool, was enough for him to feel comfortable and realize that maybe I'm a guy who's not going to be an issue for him. And then he had enough faith in me to give me opportunity that I didn't blow and that I kept on going along with it. If you ever listen to the podcast or ever see us in real life, like the big thing is we joke about it, but Kyle's going to cut. I don't know when to shut up. I say the wrong things at times. I'm just going to be me. And even when it annoys the shit out of him, at least he appreciates it. And it's just nice having a guy like that who I respect also in a moment be a human being and send me a stupid GIF or, bust my balls, or we'll joke about something. Like not a day goes by where myself and Joe Gallion are texting each other back and forth about either wrestling, music, trivial stuff. Like right now they're in, I think they're in Dallas, Texas tonight, either Austin or Dallas at a Smashing Pumpkins show. So we got our little weird ass family that we're trying to build upon. And then 2023, we're hoping, can't talk about the stuff, but we're hoping that some new things come around and make this thing even bigger than it was the year before.
And so when you get a text message that comes through from Billy Corgan, do you like sometimes have to pinch yourself and be like, holy shit, I have Billy Corgan's phone number in my phone?
I mean, there's definitely times where I'll laugh my ass off about something, or I'll be like, this is my life. For the most part, it's, again, he's a guy who is just a normal human being that happens to have a lot more success than most people ever will. But the thing about it is, it's being any sort of entertainer is you have kind of a public persona, and then you have more of a drawn back normal version of yourself. And I love it every time he posts something. You just recently got engaged, and congratulations. But he'll post pictures of them with his kids, and he'll have like a button-up flannel shirt on. I'm like, look at Billy being a normal human being. Oh, it's just like, we talk about it on the podcast on 33. Again, available on iTunes, Spotify, everywhere you download or get your podcast Tuesdays. We talk about a lot on there that he's always played a character. And a lot of people don't get that. They'll see him with like the zero hat and the zero shirt. That was a character. The whole idea was, if I was a rock star, who would I be and how would I portray myself if I was completely unaware of how to be a rock star? That's what that is. And it backfired because everybody just goes, that's Billy Corgan. It's like I was playing a character, and then I did it so well that people just thought it was me, and then I got screwed and I was stuck in that position. He's like, and then it finally burned out completely in 2000 when we went way too far with it. But at the end of the day, the person that you see, there's a legit human being with emotions and history and everything behind him. So I never try to forget that, because it's one of my favorite cool things about it, is when you see people and you meet people, just be like, hey, we're trying to live. We're getting through this life. We've had similar life experiences. It just career-wise might be completely different, but we all have fears. We all have desires. We all shit. We all fall down. We all get back up. We all do things we shouldn't, and we all have things we wish we could do. There we go.
Boom.
Billy has a lot of money. Obviously, he could have threw all his money at this and done the big thing.
He's got more than I do. I don't know how much he has, but more than me. Yeah.
And in the world of pro wrestling, there's over 7 hours of highly produced, very crisp television on, and the NWA does a really good job standing out with an hour to a half hour on YouTube, doing that old studio style with a ring, a microphone, and a camera. What goes into kind of the planning of that? What was kind of the idea of keeping it that bare bones? And how do you guys kind of come up with not having maybe the production of everyone else, but you're telling the stories in the ring? How does all that stuff work in the back, kind of making it all come to a head?
I mean, Billy comes up with things that he's thinking about doing, and then he conveys it to all of us, and we try to make it happen. At the end of the day, it would be one thing if you could fit the production of AEW and WWE that they have. That's literally millions of dollars per episode, just throwing at the wall, giant screens, pizzazz, pyro, this, that, boom, boom, boom. Let's get the rights to Cult of Personality. Let's do this. Like, that's so much money just to make something that your return for it's an uphill battle to begin with. We're a throwback program. We are trying to get the most out of studio wrestling, and we try to have a different presentation than everybody else, because if you can't compete with everybody, the key is to do something different. So that's what we do. Like right now, have 2 shows coming up. November 12th, I said, was Hard Times 3, which will be on pay-per-view. The night after will be Revolution Rumble, also in Chalmette, Louisiana. And so earlier today, we're going back and forth, because we have a set list of talent. We're doing a co-branded show with Wildcat Sports, which is Luke Hawk's promotion. Luke Hawks, who was in Young Rock and doing a number of other things. If you ever saw the movie Logan, he's one of the guys that gets clawed through the head. He's a stuntman as well. One of our wrestlers who will be challenging for maybe a title coming up. I almost said something spoiler. But at the end of the day, it's how do we get to where we need to be? So right now we're figuring that out still to this day. Like as I'm talking to you, I'm looking up every now and then because I'm seeing if I'm getting emails or anything coming through. But the creative process is pretty much, these are the people we have. This is a cool idea that maybe Billy came up with. We all put kind of a thought into it, and then we make whatever can happen from it. Does it always work out? No. But when it hits, man, it feels so good to know that that was a discussion we had when it didn't even exist more than just an idea that was thrown out loud. And now look at it. It's right there on the screen with human beings making that exist.
Now, I love the concept of you guys putting the show on YouTube every week. Obviously, that's probably not a way to keep the lights on. What does the future look like as far as, are you going to keep it on the internet? Is it going to be a digital stream, or is there some kind of television that you're trying to get on, something like that down the road that we can look towards in 2023 or beyond?
Well, when the show started, we were on YouTube only. And the idea of that was, if you're going to be presenting something and trying to get people's eyes on it, you want to make sure that you kind of lure them in. You know, I remember people saying this about drugs, you know, the first taste is free, you got to get mugged. And we were doing fantastic on that aspect. And we transitioned to Fight, which is we had a bundle on there. We still do, where you pay a fee, you can get all the pay-per-views, and then you can get first run of certain programming. And when that happened, it coincided pretty much with the pandemic. And so as we did that, we pulled stuff off YouTube, and then the world shut down. And so we've really been playing a game of trying to get back to where we were before we stopped doing shows, because we shut down as a company for the most part for 1 year. So thankfully, there was an opportunity for us to return, and that we were able to start that progress again. But I can only imagine what would have happened if that pandemic didn't occur for us. And I know that, again, that was a whole thing that affected the world and people on levels that I can't even relate to. But the YouTube thing is fantastic. So right now we have first run programming on Fight. And then if you want to wait several days, you can watch the replay. So it's kind of like, as the kids say, FOMO. If you're missing out, you want to make sure you get it before everybody else does. Now, as far as television goes, the world's changed so much. When I was a kid, you had to have TV, be it, a network, CW, UPN, this, that, I'm going to be on here, I'm going to be on there. Everything is online now. Content is almost always absorbed, not live, and people's own schedules. So the YouTube thing works, and I'm hoping, and we're pulling forward to see that maybe in the next several years, we can have a TV component that is a little bit different than what you're used to. We're even working on maybe having like a reality show and things like that, but nothing's in the books. It's all baby steps. What's going to happen now? What's going to happen now? So yeah, right now we remain on YouTube. It's there for all of our fans to view and enjoy. Powerrr is on YouTube on Fridays at 6:05, and then NWA USA, our sister program, is on at noon on Saturdays. Otherwise, subscribe to Fight. But yeah, for the most part, it's working for us now. Do I wish we had more eyes on us? Yes, but I also am always cognizant that, in the 70s and 80s, there was, 5 networks. If you had a program, everybody saw it. Now there's a million things. You'll see it happen with streaming services right now. They are struggling to decide on what to keep and what to cut, because now that everybody has a streaming service, they're no longer special. There's too much content, there's too much cost, there's too much just going on for anybody to really be able to dive into everything they could possibly want. I love comic books. When I was a kid, there was no comic book shows. Now, literally, there's 1,000 comic book movies and TV shows. The fact where I've never even watched the DC stuff that was on TV. I've never seen any of like the Flash stuff. I've never seen any of Legends of Tomorrow. I've never seen Titans. I've never seen Swamp Thing. I've never seen any of these things that I would enjoy. I just don't have time. So it's one of those deals where I would love to have the world know every moment that we exist, but there's also so much that's gaining people's attention, social media and everything else, that being able to exist and being able to succeed in the level we are is a win to me.
I just want to say you've made me a fan, so you definitely got two eyes that are going to be checking you out. And Jimmy's been trying forever, and I'll entertain him and humor him once in a while, but I will definitely dabble and check it out and see all the good stuff that's going on down there. Now, in terms of acquiring talent and that sort of stuff, or do you have a scout? Are you going out looking for people? Are people coming to you, or do you have a set lineup and that's who you're working with right now?
People come to us right now. A guy I grew up, watching. I was a big ECW fan, which was my favorite wrestling company of all time. Simon Diamond, who is Pat Kenny, is I fully raised somebody there. I was never really a Dudley's fan. I was an Eliminators guy.
All right, let's go. Total Elimination.
Saturn. Yeah, that's right, baby. Even though it was only like 2 years that they actually had any sort of grasp on the tag team scene there. Whereas the Dudleys did have a much larger legacy, and Bully Ray is a part of the National Wrestling Alliance, so big plug there. But Simon Diamond, who is Pat Kenny, is our head of talent relations. People reach out to him. He tries to make the most out of it and decide who is the most bang for the buck. And I'm trying to discover the next stars of tomorrow. And, we did such a good job of that for the longest time. You see Ricky Starks killing it in AEW. Ricky Starks got his first national attention with us. Thunder Rosa, another person, former NWA World Women's Champion. The list goes on and on. And somebody I used to work with in Ring of Honor, who I'm a big fan of, in Kingston. So seeing him succeed everywhere else, because he was also an NWA guy as well. So just big ups. And I think one of the things that people always forget is how it sucks. Eli Drake's another one, who is LA Knight now in WWE. People must say, like, oh, it sucks to have people that just leave and stuff. But no, if somebody can build and grow their personality and their skill set with us and go on to other places and succeed there, it does nothing more than help us too. Because somebody's going to look back and say, oh, they were there. I'm a fan of them. I want to see what this was. I want to do that. I want to do this. And the more wrestling there is means the more opportunity there is for everybody involved in the industry. And at the end of the day, just that does nothing but help everybody else out.
Yeah, and one thing I think that NWA did really well, you mentioned Thunder Rosa. She defended the title on AEW television during the pandemic. Nick Aldis, when the NWA was getting going, him and Cody at All In. Do you see anything like that happening in the future as far as seeing the NWA title travel on kind of like that territory concept?
We are willing to do business with anyone and everyone that is willing to treat us, as an equal. At the end of the day, we have the world title that is the longest lineage in professional wrestling. 74 years, WWE, WCW, ECW, they all were offshoots. TNA, we're all offshoots of the NWA title. So we have this prestige. And yes, we're building and we're growing, but we are the longest running name in the game. And as long as people are cool with that and willing to, acknowledge that, we're willing to help out and do whatever we can. We just want to be a part of professional wrestling and build and grow and make that legacy be what matters. Tradition, legacy, National Wrestling Alliance. We're there wherever anybody wants us to be. Internationally, in the US, any day of the week.
You mentioned the reality show. Is that something, going back to, talent acquisition and that sort of stuff, where you're looking at the current roster to do something fun with it? Or is it more maybe along the lines of like an Ultimate Fighter, where you're bringing in new talent and putting them in the house and see what kind of chaos, or can you not let the cat out of the bag?
It's just been an idea that's been thrown around, and I can't let the cat out of the bag, but some stuff was filmed, and, it remains to be seen on where that ends up. So fingers crossed. It'll be an interesting thing.
I'm a fan. I'm in. Just curious. I guess it kind of goes along with the alien talk and, where our tinfoil hats go. Sometimes you mentioned the podcast. Is there any sort of connection to that with the number 33?
You're going to have to tune in to find out what the 33 is all about. There is a Smashing Pumpkins song named 33. 33 is a number that has many different meanings. Billy Corgan is a man who thinks outside of the box and outside of the metaphysical universe at times. So it could literally mean anything. And I did bring it up on episode 1. He says, Kyle, you're going to have to keep on asking questions and tune in to find out. And I'm going to tell you the exact same thing, because that man knows more than I do.
Okay. Is he a Freemason?
I've seen belt buckles. I mean, who knows if anybody's really anything, or if it's just something that they are intrigued by. But yeah, I've seen a belt buckle before, and I was like, look at that.
Okay, right on.
Is anybody really anything? Who's to say? At the end of the day, here's the fact of the matter. I have a concept of who I think I am as a human being. That's one person. Now, if I'm surrounded with 50 people that all have decided I'm somebody else completely, does the one person's opinion of what they think they are matter? Or is the 50 people around him that have all made a decision, is that more powerful of a conclusion than the one person's? Who's to say? So who really knows who anybody is? I have no idea what I look like. I have no idea what I sound like. I have no idea what anybody thinks of me at a given time. So is he that? I have no freaking clue. Does he think he is? Who knows? Who knows anything?
Collective consciousness, just blowing minds over here. And you might not know how you talk, but I know how you talk, and you are smooth. And if you ever
silky,
if you ever have a public speaking course or anything along those lines in terms of being on the mic, I'd sign up for that as well too.
hate my speech impediment. Every time I hear my list, and like right now I'm parched, so I'm like gasping. Oh man, I must be horrible. I'm so sorry you guys don't have me at my best. It's been a very long day.
No, you're on fire,
Yeah,
man.
you're on fire. If this is like 80%, I'll take it, dog. I'd like to have your 80%. So
For real.
before we get into rapid fire, Kyle, one last wrestling thing. You know, you've pitched the NWA pay-per-views on here. Tell the fans of Airey Bros Radio, tell Richie Rich what they can look forward to on the up and coming pay-per-view, the NWA pay-per-view. What storylines are going to be building up to that show?
I mean, coming up November 12th, NWA Hard Times, 3 Hard Times in New Orleans. The world title will be on the line, a triple threat match. The NWA World Heavyweight Champion, Trevor Murdoch, will have to defend against Matt Cardona, the man who never lost the NWA World Heavyweight title, but had to relinquish it due to an arm injury. He's also the man that beat Trevor Murdoch for the title when he won it. So that part of it, who knows what's going to happen. Add in Tyrus, the Manster, the Great American Smash. Whether you know him from Fox News or you know him from professional wrestling, whatever it is, the man is a monster and a beast and a lot to handle. He was the TV champion. He relinquished the TV title to get another shot at the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. These are two men that feel like they have Trevor Murdoch's number. Anything can happen. You got to tune in to find out, because I don't know who's going to walk away as the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. I have my favorites, and I have the person I don't want to win, but I don't know if that's going to happen. Also, Camille, the NWA World Heavyweight Women's Champion, will be putting her title on the line right now. Taya Valkyrie is the person that is supposed to be going against her. We'll see what happens. Again, Hard Times 3. Order at nwatix.com to see live and in person, or just get it in your own home or wherever you can stream at fight.tv. There's also a lot more matches that we are not announcing yet because they're still happening. It's going to be a full card and we're not quite there yet. We are 6 weeks out, but I can't really give you any spoilers because I don't even know what's going to happen. Wink, wink.
Well, we don't need all the matches, because all the names you mentioned there are great talent that deserve that spotlight. I'm happy to see them get that. Matt Cardona is a stud, and I love what you guys are doing with him in the NWA. You mentioned Tyrus. He's a guy, like you said, Fox, your grandmother loves him. Who you know, he is the man. And Camille, I think not only is she a great athlete, when she speaks, she reminds me of Sensational Sherry. She's got a lot going on. I love what
her husband's going to be in action too. He's going against EC3. We just announced that.
That's another thing. Tom Latimer, I love to see what he's got going on. He had a start-stop-go in WWE, TNA, and now to finally see him get a spotlight to put his talent out there, I love it. So I'm going to be buying.
You mentioned Nick Aldis before. Nick Aldis will be in action. It looks like he's going to be facing Odinson, but that match has not been put to paper yet. But I have a feeling that is what's going to happen.
I got one more before we get into rapid fire. Kyle, you've mentioned a lot of names here, and you talked about the big match coming up at the pay-per-view, and you didn't want to give away your favorite, and I totally understand that within the organization. But do you have an all-time favorite wrestler, and who is your current non-NWA favorite right now, currently wrestling?
All-time favorite would be Dean Malenko. He is my all-time favorite wrestler.
Man of 1,000.
A very funny human being. Doesn't translate to TV for the most part, but as far as just a skilled technician, Dean Malenko was just my guy. Taz was also another dude. ECW era Taz, dropping people on their heads, and Shane Douglas were my top 3 on that. Favorite to watch in wrestling currently, I have been a Shinsuke Nakamura fan for years now. My dog's name is Shinsuke. So that is somebody who literally, I think I got his biography up here right now. And of course, Bryan Danielson, just because I'm biased. I mean, he's the guy who broke me in the business. And I always, when I get to see him, I always like to remind him how disappointing it is that the only person that graduated from the Ring of Honor Academy under him is now a broadcaster.
You mentioned being a broadcaster now. Do you have broadcasters that you study, whether it be pro wrestling guys or outside? I know I study Ariel Hawani. He's one of the best. Do you have any podcasts that you're listening to for interview style?
I mean, for wrestling stuff, it was Mean Gene Okerlund and also Joey Styles. When I have to be serious or pitch man, I go into Mean Gene Okerlund mode. And when I am doing interviews, I'm kind of a smartass in normal life, and that translates. So that's the Joey Styles part of it. Also, when I have to do a hard sell, I go, like the order now. I start getting into that mode. As far as podcasts and things, I love listening to podcasts constantly. I like comedy. I find humor in a lot of things, but also I like people that aren't assholes. Kevin Smith is probably one of my favorite human beings alive. Every time I listen to an interview with him, he's actually the guy who made me feel like it was okay to smoke pot, which has helped my anxiety greatly, because I am a ball of nerves, and a little edible will make me feel a lot about life. It makes me a lot nicer of a human being and less anxious. And Kevin Smith was the guy who was the one that made me be like, oh, it's okay. Also, he can talk up a storm. He is entertaining as all hell, has funny anecdotes, is self-deprecating, and can sell so much just with his own words. Also a big fan of Jason Mantzoukas, who is on the How Did This Get Made podcast, just for his ridiculousness, and Pete Holmes, who does amazing interviews, also a comedian. But for the most part, I like people that seem like they're legit human beings. There's also another podcast called with Gorley and Russ, where they talk about horror films. And they're just so laid back and chill about it, and very funny, and they riff because they're both kind of improv guys. Yeah, so that's the things that help build me as a human being and try to give me a focus of like, what should I lean towards, or what can I be more like?
Well, lucky you that marijuana brings down your anxiety, because it throws mine through the roof.
My wife's the same way. We were in the woods one night, and she thought somebody would look at us in the woods. I was just like, I'm ready. Just relax. Let's look at the stars. This is.
I smoked myself sober. I was like, I can't do this anymore.
I mean, to each their own. Everybody's got something that works for them, and as long as you're not doing something that's hurting anybody else, I'm all for it.
Yeah, same here.
Kyle, so first rapid fire question I have for you is, are you a coffee drinker?
No.
That's all natural energy you got, huh?
Like the taste of it. Don't like hot beverages.
Okay.
My tongue is very sensitive. And I can tell you that I burn it constantly, even on hot chocolate. Yeah. Hey, what can I say? Good with my mouth. So hot chocolate always burns my mouth. Like, I can't even have that. I don't know how people drink coffee. It's horrible. It's like beer. It's one of those things where I feel like you are supposed to accrue a taste for it, and you kind of force yourself to keep on drinking it until you like it. But if you have to put 15 creams and 15 sugars in it, you don't like coffee. You just like, sweetened milk product. Yeah, so don't drink beer, don't drink coffee. I will have a C4 brain drink in the morning sometimes for caffeine. But it also just helps me focus, because I have like crazy ADHD, and I'm like, what's this? It's hard for me to do very simple tasks. So I have to caffeinate to be able to focus.
Okay. Kyle, do you have any?
I'm a broken human being.
Oh, we all are.
Do I have any what?
I was going to say, our next question is, do you have any daily practices or rituals that you do on a regular basis to show up as the strongest version of yourself?
At one point in time, I did have like a daily affirmations thing that I was trying to do, and I did not stick with it. At the end of the day, the most important thing for me is just to try to appreciate the little moments in life. And I'm not great at it all the time. I do get stressed about real things instead of taking a moment and sitting back and saying, hey, I recently watched a movie. It's called About Time. It's, I want to say they were British. But basically the quick premise of it is this guy on his 21st birthday, his dad sits him down. It's his dad. Did you ever see the movie Love Actually?
Sounds familiar.
It's familiar, but I haven't seen it.
One of the actors from that is the dad. And the dad sits him down. He's like, this is going to be really weird. He's like, but I want to let you know. The men in our family in time. And he's like, what? He's like, yeah. He's like, so just, you go in the closet, you find a dark place, you clench your hands, you think of a moment in time from your life you want to be at, and then you'll be in that moment in time. And it turns out it's legit. So the whole movie is basically just being like, it's a comedy, but with a lot of heart. And the idea of it is, every time you make a little mistake, you can go back and you can change it, but also what are the repercussions and what do you miss out if you change big things? And by the end of the movie, the big payoff of it is, he's like, to learn that, live your day, go back all over again, and then look at it for what it is, which is a tiny little series of moments that you get to appreciate instead of being stressed. So there's literally one scene where he's like, I had a horrible day, and he goes to sleep and he relives the day. And instead of all the dumb shit that happens that pissed him off the first time around, he just realizes like, no, this is fantastic. I get to live all these little moments that I might never get to see again. And so that's kind of one of the things in my head is I try to just be appreciative for what I have and for everything. So even when I'm complaining about how shitty of a day I have, like look what I could do with my fingers. Look what I could do. Like I could walk, I can run, I could eat. I have people that care about me. I have dogs that I love. I have a history, I have a brain, I've got all this stuff. I got a roof over my head. Like life is not bad. And I always have to, that's my self-affirmation is just be like, hey, life's not bad. Stop complaining. People have it worse than you. And I try to go to the gym 4 to 5 times a week, but my gym just got destroyed from the hurricane. So I'm now traveling extra 25 minutes and it's really cutting into my want to go every day. So it's becoming every other day. Shame.
What kind of fitness protocol you got go? Do you do like more accessory bodybuilding stuff? You do a little CrossFit, or what tickles your fancy?
Form over function. I just don't want to look horrible. So really it's just a little bit of cardio with weights. I've got an app on my phone that every day gives me a new workout and tracks everything for me. It's called FitBod. I love the damn thing. It keeps me motivated. I eat hard. I love fast food. I love things I shouldn't be eating and drinking. And especially when we talk about the other thing, when I have the medicinal fun that makes me less anxiety, I also like to eat a lot.
Right on.
What's wrong with that?
Nope.
Until my heart explodes.
YOLO.
Kyle, you already told us what podcast you're listening to. What are you listening to music-wise, audiobooks? Are you reading anything?
Reading, unfortunately, tends to either be when the weather's nice, I'll go across the street to the beach and pick up like a biography, or I tend to read more biographies, especially like comedians and stuff. Seth Rogen had a very funny book. I just bought the new Grant Morrison book, Luda. And then also comic books. I digitally download just about everything because that was my jam as a kid. And I still, as a child, I now have all the opportunities to get everything I ever wanted. So yeah, it's comic books and biographies are the two things that I typically read.
What do you listen
to? There was another part of that question. Thank you. It was, what do I listen to? That was like, there was another part of this question that I forgot about. What do I listen to? I listen to about everything. The only thing I don't listen to is country music. I'm a big proponent of the belief that you develop substantially during your teenage years, and there was some sort of arrested development on that where you tend to link yourself to the things who were like teens. So me, I love alternative music from the 90s. I'm also a huge David Bowie fan. Anything prior to around 2005 from Bowie is my jam. I've been listening to a lot of Smashing Pumpkins lately because I do a podcast with Billy Corgan, and also it's good to know these things. But yeah, I listen to just about everything except for country. It's just not my jam. I can't get into it. Every now and then I'll find some random thing, like a psychedelic song from the 70s that'll hit me in just the right way, and I'd be like, yes, that goes on the Stoner playlist now. I'm gonna relax and just boom. And then also my partner in wrestling, Joe Galley, will always just throw out randomness. And then you realize that things that you think are rare might be a very popular thing that you're just not in the know of. Like for somehow you missed that collective consciousness part. But then other times you'll also be like, oh, your random cool shit, I actually kind of like it. Now I'm experienced to it. He said some song the other day, just randomly, and I thought he made it up. You ever have somebody say something, you're like, oh, it's funny, and then it turns out it's real? He goes, yeah, like, I don't know, like, let's just say Hocus Pocus by Focus, which is just a fun thing to say, Hocus Pocus by Focus. That can't be real. It's a real freaking song. It's kind of creepy. It's about a guy trying to pick up a girl who's underage, but it's a 70s song, and apparently the world was very different in the 70s. But again, Hocus Pocus by Focus. Just keep on saying it. I say it all the time now, and I don't even want to. Focus. See? Get stuck in the brain.
So before we get into our last question, and this kind of ties into our last question, but I know you're a big comic book fan, I will encourage you to check out the works of Paranoid American. He was a guest of ours. He does comic books with a conspiratorial twist, which leads me into the last question. We talked about aliens, you talked about the 33 and maybe some suspect belt buckles that I need to look into.
Mhm.
Do you have a favorite conspiracy theory? Do you go down rabbit holes when you've had a little medicinal fun and you're eating some Cheetos or something?
So I'm really big on realizing that sometimes it's really easy to come up with scenarios to explain things that we just don't think. And, a lot of times in life, it might be with Sherlock Holmes, I can't remember who the hell it was at the moment, but it was the whole idea of what the most logical answer is probably the real answer, even if it doesn't seem legit at all. Like the easiest thing is usually. And I think it's great that everybody tries to come up with the idea of, this thing happened, so this must have been a catalyst for it, because what if this was this and this and that? I think human nature is to try to make a lot of things that aren't really there. We make connections that don't exist, just the way our brains are wired. So I don't really believe in conspiracy stuff. Now, if you were to say this happened because people are real shitty, like if you were like Kennedy was killed because he, was against this thing that would have made money. It doesn't really sound like a conspiracy to me. It just sounds like a matter of fact, people are garbage and are profiteering and they want this to happen. Now, if you were to like, do aliens exist? I mean, who the hell am I supposed to know? But I find it really hard to believe that any sort of like advanced civilization would have any interest in coming to this. I mean, seriously, like what the hell? I mean, I know I'm not checking out anthills and looking down there and being like, what the hell is going on? Is that to say there's not alien life? I mean, I love comic books. I would love it if there was a Shahar Empire or the Kree or some crazy stuff like that. That would be fantastic to me. Who's the freaking say? I mean, I remember I was flipping through channels one night and Transformers movie was on. And the whole premise on one of those was like, the reason we have cell phones and all this technological advance because we're ripping off a Transformer that we've had in the thing for the last 40 years. I was like, seems reasonable. It's a movie, but still. Yeah, I don't know enough to believe in conspiracies because at the end of the day, I barely know what's going on in my own life. And hundreds of thousands of years ago, people thought fire was magic. So who knows? Could be an answer for everything that makes complete sense.
I love it. Great answer.
Although Thrillbilly Silas, who is one of the newest members of the National Wrestling Alliance, did have a funny 9/11 truther hat on, which was how I first met him. And it was a hat that said, "Steel don't melt at that temperature, and neither does this dick." And I was like, "Is that a dick joke 9/11 truther hat, dude?" And he goes, "It is." And I showed it to like 3 people. I'm like, "Have you guys seen the guy with the 9/11 truther dick joke hat?" And everybody was like, "I kind of want to see how he wrestles." So we literally gave him a match, and he killed it. The guy's awesome. Not only is he entertaining and just comes up with the craziest shit because he realizes that it's going to get somebody to pop, that he can go in the ring. And I'm just like, that's one of my new favorite people, just because of the ridiculousness. And the fact that he owns the stupid ridiculousness where he's like, "Oh, you paid attention." That was the entire point, is for you to be like, what the hell is that?
I think Richie's got a new favorite wrestler.
I gotta go find that hat. Some people are getting a new hat for Christmas.
Kyle, you just made the all-time. You're going to be on the intro forever. So thank you for that. Thanks for your time. I've reached out to the NWA before to get you on. Has been an honor. You're doing what I want to do for a living. So keep an eye out for my resume come May. I love what the NWA's got going on. You guys are really speaking to that hipster wrestling fan, and there's plenty of us out there. So keep on keeping on, and thank you so much for this conversation, sir.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me. And you said hipster wrestling fan, which makes me laugh, because I was just talking about Cherub Rock, the Smashing Pumpkins song the other day, and it turns out I've misheard a lyric in there. I always thought the lyric was hamsters unite. Turns out hipsters unite. Just putting that out there.
The more you know.
Yeah, learn
Can't wait to
something
tell
new.
him that one. I know Billy's going to really appreciate it when it comes time for us to go over that song.
Kyle, it was awesome meeting you. I am a fan. I will be tuning in and checking out everything you guys got going over at NWA. I really appreciate your time. And glad to hear you got your Wi-Fi and everything back up. And as we're in
It's actually
hurricane
back
season,
down.
stay
It
safe.
stopped working. It's gone. My wife walked by. I don't know if you saw me at one point. I looked over. She walked by and put a thumbs down. It's dead. So, hey, I know, guys. Life happens. Expect for the worst. But when that doesn't happen, be thankful that it didn't and just enjoy what you have. For the Airey Brothers, this has been Kyle Davis. Guys, thank you. Tune in follow, like, subscribe, do whatever you need to do. Just live the life that you deserve and treat people with kindness. Be safe. The world's crazy out there.